There was a game played in the fall of 2015. A game so incredible, a game so legendary, that whispers of it would float around the Boston area for years to come. But this game wasn't played on the gridiron, and it wasn't played on the basketball court. This game was Slap Cup.
So when I was in college, we played a lot of different drinking games. Most of the standard ones, your beer pong, your flip cup.
Chesties, Tummies, Dizzy Bat, Chandelier, Kings, Ride the Bus, Civil War, Beer Ball, Beer Baseball.
There's one game that was the game of games. Got everyone involved and up on their feet. And that game was Slap Cup.
There were times, I think, in Slap Cup where it would get like a little more competitive. But that's probably the only game, really, I think. I think the other ones kept it kind of cool and laid back.
Do you recall a game of Slap Cup played at 16 South Street in the fall of 2015?
Yeah. That game of Slap Cup in fall of 2016, I think about that game probably like once a week.
I do recall this game. I do recall this day.
Do I remember the greatest Slap Cup game ever played? Have you ever been walking down the street and you walk by a girl and you say, wow, I'm never going to forget that girl? That's what this game was.
Everyone was first shot and you just kept working backwards. It was really stunning. I don't even know how the game ended.
Oh, the game of Slap Cup 2015. That is like one of my most vivid experiences.
Describing that game in one word, I'd say perfection.
It was epic. The game was epic.
Intense.
Unforgettable.
Slap Cup, a frivolous drinking game for college students, or a sport worthy of addition to the Olympic Games? Let's find out how it's played.
Slap Cup's a simple enough game. Oh, that's funny.
It really is.
It is hard to explain, though.
So Slap Cup's a pretty simple game. You start out with a bunch of cups in the middle of the table. People are all surrounding them. Every cup has about a shot's worth of beer, except the middle cup is filled all the way to the top.
But then the rest of the game is played as in there's two people, each with a empty solo cup. And the goal is you're supposed to bounce the ping pong ball onto the table into the cup in one go. And once you do that, then you pass it on, either if you're playing clockwise, counterclockwise, depending on what you're doing, you pass on to the next person. Now, say it's two people side by side, and if you're going counterclockwise, then you'd pass it off to your right. And if the person in front of you doesn't make the ball into the cup before you do, then you have the right to, quote-unquote, slap their cup, and they're forced to drink one of the cups that's located on the center of the table.
So if you're here, I'm gonna stand up. If you're in the zone, you're bouncing, you hit it, it's immediate, it's bang. Because you don't wanna waste any time hitting their cup off the table because they might make it.
You lose by being the last person to really finish the game, right? So, you go through and everyone keeps grabbing of the 20 cups and, you're down to 19, 18, 17 left. And you finally get down to one final cup, which most people call like the death cup, maybe the bitch cup, however those like to define it.
If you lose on that one, you have to chug the entire beer. The game can get pretty violent, as you would assume.
Some of the greatest occurrences in history happened in the most unlikely of settings. Jesus was born in a stable. Louis Armstrong learned jazz in a whorehouse. And the greatest game ever played occurred on South Street in Brighton, Massachusetts.
So that year was our junior year. We lived off campus in 16 South Street, a humongous house. We had the top floor. The house was so dirty that if you walked around barefoot, your feet would turn black.
I mean, the floors had not been cleaned properly in 10 years, and our frequent games of Slap Cup probably didn't help that. But it was a very cheap, dirty college house.
It was this kind of shitty, fold up plastic table that one of our other roommates' parents gave us for tailgating. And, it wasn't a pretty table, but it had character.
The biggest names in the game of Slap Cup participate in this game. Let's see. Well, there was me, and then the rest of my friends, a Dan Gallagher, a Chris Dallariva, a Denny Lynch. Was Denny Lynch? Yes, Denny Lynch was there. It was the fall of 2015. He was not abroad yet. Then the incoming crew of some elderly gentlemen, John Scatino, Peter Donahue. Oh, John Campbell was there. John Campbell. How could I forget?
I really think Scatino, he was on his game that night. Peter, he always comes ready to play. And you cannot count out Eddie's roommates. They're wild cards. You don't see them that often on the circuit, but when they're out there, man, they play to win.
I compare my style of play to professional athletes. I typically kind of think of the LeBron and Jordan. I have the championships. I almost never lose 6-0 in the championship games for Jordan. That's kind of how I tend to play it. And it's really just a consistency. You're never going to see me go out in an early round or not make a big impact on the game.
If I had to compare my style of slap cup play to any athlete, it would probably be Serena Williams. I'm very dominant, but occasionally I grunt when I swing. So.
Sometimes in life, things just line up perfectly, and this night was definitely one of those nights.
When you think of the people playing, typically it's going to be a disparate game. Some people are going to be off, some people are going to be on. But this is one of the only games I've ever seen where no one missed a cup for consecutive cups going back and forth and back and forth. Pretty much every single player was feeling it.
I mean, everyone playing that night, I think everyone was feeling it. It was, like I said, there was something in the air that night. It wasn't even like there was a party going on, That was the craziest part. It was just like 8 guys who were like, hey, want to play a game of Slap Cup before we go out? No one watching. It was just people going to work, just doing their job.
No one was missing a cup. It was the fastest, most rapid-paced game of Slap Cup I've ever seen in my life.
This is the thing so when I think back on that table, the thing that's crazy is that everybody was in the zone. I don't even know if there was a missed cup the whole game. It was truly astounding.
Oh, man, how many shots did we make in a row? I lost count after 20. You're supposed to pass to the left. We were hitting so many shots. We were going to the right. We must have gone around twice at least before someone missed a shot. It was honestly one of the most incredible things I've ever seen.
I think there's honestly a decent chance that, the highest amount of consecutive shots made could have maybe gone up to like maybe 20, 25 in a row, something like that. I think that's an honest, realistic assessment of what had transpired in that game.
I mean, honestly, you could have gone up to 50, 60, maybe over 100 consecutive shots were made. I think that game went on for at least an hour or two. No one was missing.
When I try to rank this amongst the most competitive drinking games, there's been a lot, but it's very rare you see every single person just locked in like that. I mean, this wasn't a regular season game. This was LeBron versus the Warriors. This was Red Sox Yankees. This was Ali Frazier. Just Titans going back and forth, throwing haymakers left and right.
Honestly, you know what comes back to mind right now? The AFC Championship between the Bills and the Chiefs. With 2 minutes left, scoring 30, 40 combined points, multiple touchdowns. That's how it felt like. People were making shots here and there. Who knew who was going to win? There was no such thing as not enough time on the clock.
I was definitely afraid of losing at various points because when you're playing with people that caliber, you're always going to get into a situation where you're in trouble at some point.
Was I afraid of losing? Absolutely not. It's not in my nature. I mean, whenever you play the game as consistently and for as high level as I do, no matter what the competition is, I'm always going to show up.
My strategy was I hadn't accepted defeat, but I had a good feeling that it was imminent. So minimizing the damage done prior to losing, I think, was my was my end strategy.
Oh man, at that point it's not a question of deserve. Someone has to drink the last cup, right? Eventually the ping pong ball is gonna dent, the cup's gonna slide. Zamboni's were basically out of fuel at that point, so our options were limited. Someone was gonna drink the last cup, so if it was gonna be him, it could have been anyone.
This game was 100% the most competitive, not just drinking game, but athletic competition, and I would elevate it to that I've ever participated in my entire life.
I don't know if I'll ever experience that again. It's just the consistency, the purity of the game. It's like a double rainbow.
Do you still hear me talking about that A I got in a chemistry class 5, 6, 7 years ago? No. But I still talk about that night of Slap Cup.
And anytime I think of memories of college, that memory shows up at the forefront of my mind. And even now, nothing else is really popping to my head.
Maybe when, I have a kid and they're born, or on my wedding day, but it was pretty tough to beat.
I don't know if I ever want to experience that again. I'm afraid I'd get addicted to it. It was, we flew pretty close to the sun that night, and you gotta be careful.
Yeah, I tell everybody about that game. Even people who don't want to know about it.
There's no question that this is going to make the history books. It's an example of perseverance, of competitiveness, of what can happen when there are no girls at the Slap Cup table. Honestly, it's a prototype for what you should be looking for at your parties, around the table at least.
Oh, that was great.